The biggest issues when it comes to sales is not having a full pipeline. Today, Jeff, me, we're gonna crush it today and talk about how we can basically overcome those and crush it.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Nothing like having a little technical difficulties
Yeah,
on the
yeah, I
mind.
know. You went back to your first time. I said, "Oh, new opening."
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, we got to do a little countdown. I know today's a little different because we're streaming on my LinkedIn, but I'll wait till people kind of come in. But Jeff, how you been, man? How was your weekend? I know you're a busy guy.
Good. Yeah. It was good. Didn't do much. Watched a few football games. Took the wife out to dinner. Went to a casino. Not much, Went by fast though. They always do, right?
Yeah, you know they definitely do go by fast, especially Sunday. It's like, oh man, I get to wake up in the morning and work, but I'm like, I wish I had a couple more hours, let me watch a little TV.
Absolutely. How about you, man? How about your weekend? What'd you do, my friend?
Yeah, I had the event on Saturday. Went really, really well. Really happy about that. Yesterday, honestly just hung out. It's a religious time in our calendar right now, so went to like our church and stuff like that, and just spend some family time together. And that's something that you can never get back, right? So
yeah, that's important.
It's awesome. Good morning, Anton.
Hey, Anton.
Hello. And Lisa. Good morning. Lisa's coming in from YouTube.
There she is. Bright and early.
Bright and early. Today's something that I think is really cool. We're in a new month. I know I saw it all over the weekend on social media posts. New month, new me, new goals, new everything, right? So it's like one of those things where, hey, you got to look at your sales pipeline, man. You got to look at basically where you're kind of looking at in terms of projections for the year, projections for next year. So Jeff, I want to kind of get in your head today as when you kind of started out, when you're working at your previous 3PL, where you are now, just different point of views. But when it comes to your sales pipeline, man, what comes to your mind when somebody says that?
Oh boy, how do you get as much as you possibly out of the customers that you already have on board? I said this, I don't know, a few times before, but as you know, I don't make a lot of phone calls. A lot of salespeople out there do that. They have quotas that need to be met, and we talked about the quantity of calls versus the quality of calls. But the way that I go about it, and I use the KISS term, keep it simple, stupid, right? What that really means for myself is that if you get into a customer, your current customer, why not expose everything that they do and try to find out as much as you possibly can? Because they're in your corral, right? They're great reference. So why would you waste your time? Or I should say, I don't waste my time going after new prospects. I take that customer and I work that customer, because you can't get in a door any better than having the reference from the customer you're doing business with. And if you're knocking it out of the park, they'll get you on board a lot quicker than trying and pushing the prospects. Now, everybody is different. I'm not saying that it's the wrong way, but for me, I look at a body of a spider, and spider has many legs. So whether you're going upstream or downstream, work that line, because remember, in the supply chain and logistics, every vendor, every manufacturer, you name it, always has a source somewhere that's feeding them, whether it's international or domestic. And so if you go from one to the next and you knock that one out, well, then you can go, down and find out who the vendors are. And that's the thing, the way that I do it. And the business has been growing exponentially. So I don't make a lot of those calls. And I know that, again, a lot of guys out there, a lot of corporations, have that quotas that need to be met. And I just try to do it the smart way to make as much revenue as you possibly can quickly, but still service each customer at a very high level, because the only way you're going to do that at a very high level. How about yourself? How do you work? I know you work much different than myself.
Yeah, much different, but then I like kind of like go for the mindset, right? Like there's different stages in my career where I did different things. But when it comes to pipeline, I look at basically the start to the finish. That's
Mhm.
basically guiding the customer along. I
Yes.
truly believe that as a sales rep, when people there's always kind of a misconception of salespeople. They kind of say that, hey, you could turn like if I was to tell somebody I'm introducing myself to a complete stranger and they're like, and I say I work in sales, they're like, oh, you're gonna sell me something. I'm like, no, 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 I'm not gonna sell you anything. Like I'm not gonna sell you something that you don't need. And I think my role in what I kind of handle myself is that how I can basically take maybes into yeses. I'm not going to go for no's into yeses. That's not who I am, because at the end of the day, there'll always be objections, right? And I think when it comes to pipeline, I look at that whole big frame, right? And I believe like a fat pipeline always fix all cures, right? And there's beauty in the follow up, and that's kind of want to go into is that when you kind of look into the follow up, that's where I believe I read something that like the 12th follow-up, and I'm talking brand new customers, right? Because it's something where we can always kind of grow on our end here. So I think for the actual sales pipeline, I use a CRM. Viewers, if you guys use a CRM, let us know which ones you guys use and how it's been successful for you. But I think that it's just from start to finish. That's what I look at it from pipeline. And when it comes to, like you said, I mentioned calls, that's different points in your life. But for me, I like to, like I said, let's say you've maxed out your customer, right? Let's say they've given you everything they can and everything like that. It's really important to actually go after new prospects as well and have those conversations.
Sure.
Because, like you said, you want to get that knowledge, right? And it's customer A might be not having the same issue as customer B. Well, they shouldn't, right? So
No.
it's good to kind of have those different mindsets and things like that.
Oh, to get back to you, sometimes not, because if you are working your customer, right, and then they have a vendor that's shipping them products, right? Well, they kind of know how your customer works, how they receive and all of that. So that's kind of like helping you out. Hey, what kind of your problems are you having on your inbound freight into company A, right?
Mhm.
And you ask all these different kinds of questions. You're going to uncover things. And what happens with that is that now you're making a really good connection. You're letting your customer know that their customer's not happy with the situation. And now you're working with them to try to iron out that problem. And now you're starting to get into their corral and you're like, hey, listen, I found this. I put this procedure in place. They're going to start switching it next week. Really? Oh, okay, great. And then that just starts, it starts the conversation out. And then, as long as you have patience, don't rush it, keep on asking those quality questions, to uncover different problems that they have and then address them. And then say, hey, I'd love to take a look at your inbound. I know you've got X amount coming into this customer and their other customer because you're a good vendor for them, and things just start rolling. Um, it does. I mean, it's not, I make it sound easy, but it's not that easy. It takes a little time to do it. But I just like that way. And like
Mhm.
I said, when I first started out, you talked about the career. I made nothing my first year, maybe 9 grand, maybe that, because I wasn't interested in making revenue. I really wasn't. I was interested in building a company, an agency that could sustain itself, support itself, and grow over time. But I didn't want to rush it because I'm not a sales guy. I keep on saying this. I'm not a sales guy. I came from the operations side, and I had no business going into this side of the business. But I wanted to learn, and it took me a little bit of time. So I took that leap of faith, and I just kept on increasing my knowledge. And one thing led to another, and now one of my old bosses works for me. So I mean, things just, I mean, it doesn't say anything better than that. But it took me a lot of time. And as long as you can sacrifice and you keep your focus on the golden objective, you're going to get there. But give yourself some time. You're going to have mass failures. You will have mass failures. But if you can get over those obstacles, the reward is awesome.
It's
Really
awesome.
is.
So I want to kind of tune into that, like your first year, because I think that's going to be really beneficial for all of us, even myself included. That hey, that first year, and then I'll kind of go over what my first year looked like. But like you said, you only kind of did roughly about 9 grand revenue. What were you doing? Let's say month over month, week over week. What was your kind of mindset? What were you doing for? Because that would be important for the pipeline that we're kind of really talking about today.
Yeah. And you know something, there was no mindset. I'm being honest. There was no mindset because I didn't know how to attack it. So what I tried to do was to compensate that by hiring a ton of sales guys, independent contractors to work for me. I must have went through 15 of them, seriously. And it was just like, I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do and everything. So I went back to the board and I was like, man, this is not working. You know, nothing, you can't do anything unless you do it yourself and you have to learn. And I went back to when I had sales guys, reps, you know, coming in to see me, and I started to, you know, incorporate that in building and what I wanted to say and how I wanted to do it. And I talked, you know, the systems I was using, how was I going to use that? How was it going to benefit me? And it took time, Ryan. I mean, the failures were just, you know, I didn't think I was going to make it. I really didn't. I had my doubts, but I didn't want to work for another corporation ever again. I mean, that's just me. I was tired of doing it. And I just took that skill and that knowledge from being on the operations side. And then that's when I started really working into my business. And that's when things started evolving. But it took some time because I just had to go back, Ryan. I had to go back, you know, to what I did pretty well. Yep. And then incorporate that into the sales and how was I going to direct that? Who was I going to go out to? You know, what did I want to sell and why did I want to sell it? What were the benefits? So it was tough. It was tough. First 2 years was crazy. And then I started about 7 years ago, but I actually started it in 2019. And then we had the pandemic and I wasn't into PPEs or anything like that. So I just lost a ton, you know. I was like, I'm not doing anything. And then things started manifesting, you know, and now, you know, I got the consulting side of the business. I went from Rail Logistics, which was the starting company. And then I branched out to RGX Logistics Solutions, which is the consulting side of my business. And like I said, one of my bosses, he was a client development expert. He wanted to come on board and help me, and he actually is starting today. So it's having those relationships over time, not burning any bridges, and just doing the right thing. At least for me, that's the right thing, and we're doing very well, very, very well.
That's good to hear because like I like that you said that, like especially for like the first 2 years, you're kind of just building up yourself and then kind of getting back to basically kind of priming yourself up to be the best. And I know Dan's brought this up on the show quite a bit, and I actually told him this, but LeBron James, probably one of the greatest athletes of I think ever, he invests into himself up close to about $2 million every year, like in special treatments and different things. And you think about that, right? It's like this guy's making over 40, 50 million, probably over 100 million with his endorsements and all that stuff. But he can easily just sleep and then wake up the next day and play basketball, right? And he'll be fine. But he's continuously investing in himself. And I think that's what it comes down to your pipeline. You know, I believe that whatever in your 30-day, because when you look at it, when we're prospecting or anything like that, you're looking at a 30-day process, right? So we're October to November, whatever it is. And the rule is that whatever you do in that 30 days is going to result in fruit in 90 days. You know, you can't plant a tree and pick from the fruit the same day, right? You've got to basically from there. So I think Lisa brings up a good point. I think it's actually really good for ad hoc, but I just want to say good morning to Farhad. Good morning, brother. Nice to see you. Good morning, Scott. Nice to see you.
Hey,
Love the show Friday. Lisa brings up a great question here. I'll let you take a stab at it, and then I'll hit it with my thing here. But what do you say when someone says my shipping is free or I don't pay for shipping?
Interesting. Well, somebody does pay for shipping on that side. Depending upon who that individual is or corporation. For instance, let's just say Walmart and stuff like that. They buy in large volumes and they get discounts on that, right? The same thing happens when you have that free shipping. It's really buried in there. It's buried into the cost of goods sold because they kind of know by geography certain like it's going to be like parcel for instance. Most of those free shipping is on the parcel side, a majority of that, and they build that into the cost of goods sold by having you know, a certain thing that says, well, you know what, if we have a $5 package, we'll do that for the country. I'm just making it really short and simple. the closer to you, less charges. The further away, more charges. So they get an average and they just put all that in and they build it into it. So it's actually part of the cost of goods sold. From my background, what I've seen over. So it's like nothing's for free in this world. I mean, it's buried in there somewhere. And I would just ask the prospect, so what do you mean free? How do you go about doing that? How is that embedded into your cost of goods sold? And it will be. You have to ask those questions because they can't take that loss. They can't do it. So it's building their costs for sure.
100%. And the reason why I was looking down is the way that I would go from it is that there's a website, Jeff, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, called Import Yeti. Everybody import YETI. And basically you can go on there and you could plug in the customer and it will tell you who their suppliers are in terms of like outbound intermodal. Yeah, it's definitely a great thing. So Lisa, the first thing I would do if they said, well, no, if I'm on the phone with them, I'd give them rebuttals, like find out, hey, it doesn't hurt to ask, like, who are your suppliers? Where are you guys getting it from? And things like that. Just have those qualifying questions to kind of see from there and always kind of maintain a communication with them after the fact because, hey, they might not be paying for shipping today, but how often, Jeff, do you get like customers, hey, I got a new customer, like your customer saying, I got a new customer. Can you work out some rates for me? So it's always good to kind of keep in contact with them because you just never know. I had a customer like that. We did chips and they acquired another company and they were actually weren't paying for shipping and they acquired a company that does like nacho cheeses and nacho chips and all that stuff. And they started had to pay for shipping now. So I became kind of their go-to because I kept that follow up with them and it actually falls back into the pipeline, always kind of keep them going. But just once I get off the call, Lisa, is that I go into Import Yeti, I pull up the customer and then it shows basically who all their suppliers are. And then I kind of go after there and, and then have those conversations. And it's just like Jeff was saying, you get the spider. It's like, I get to kind of look at the spider's web, I guess, if they made of it and try to connect everything. Right. And see how it started.
But remember, and I've always said this, a pipeline always has leaks. Leaks are going to happen. Cracks are going to happen in there. It's how fast you plug them that's going to make your pipeline flow much faster and easier. It's finding those problems before they even happen. Mm-hmm. So like I said, when you go to these customers and you have them in your corral, ask those questions. Everybody, like I said, has feeders, as I would call them. They get their product from somewhere. So you have to uncover those. And once you do that, the pipeline is going to fill up rather quickly. Not like when I say quickly, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It'll take.
You can't fast track. Customers buy on their time. Yeah,
you can't. But that pipeline will get leaks in it for sure.
100%, and that's why I think like the fatter it is, the better it's for you. Because I feel like the best advice I ever got in this industry was from my first boss, and he kind of said like, "Hey, sales cures everything." And for me, I believe that. That's something I truly believe. He's like, hey, your girlfriend broke up with you, pick up the phone and make some calls. Like you're late on your bill, pick up the phone and make some calls. So it's just not like calling out of like the blue, right? You want to kind of keep that follow up, as Scott mentions up here. You got to follow up. There's customers that like a lot of us right now have called people at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, whatever, and they're like, okay, follow up with me like now, for their times. But hopefully you guys were sending like follow-ups like every single month or every single other week or something like that, just with information deposits or everything like that. So it's really important to kind of keep those conversations going, even if they can't do anything for you, because we got John Brewer coming on tomorrow, Jeff. And I've personally told you this, I would probably like John Brewer, like he's probably one of the best people that I've seen on LinkedIn. Like I know I personally wouldn't go after him for business, but he's always been somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. So like, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want a logistics manager on your side just to bounce ideas off of with not wanting anything at all? Like, what do you kind of think, Jeff?
That's pretty funny. And hopefully John will attest to this, but we bounce things off each other a lot. And I told him, I don't want to do business with you, man. You're a friend. Not to say that I would screw something up, but I just don't like the food industry. And Lisa knows this too, because I told Lisa Petty about that as well. We were talking about Wakefern and CS Wholesale and all those guys. It's just something that's not my niche. So I'm not going to go after something like that. So, but John reached out to me some time ago and wanted to know if I could put something together because he had a big meeting. I did it. It worked out great. He got great feedback from it. You know, that's the kind of relationship. You don't have to listen. Just because you talk to somebody on LinkedIn doesn't mean you have to do business with them. You know, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's not that way. And I told John, I said, hey, listen, when I come down to Tennessee, let's go have a few beers. You know, on me. So yeah, that's the kind of friendship that we have, and we do bounce off a lot of stuff because he's been in the business a long time. So you know, we complement each other, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and it works out for everybody. And like coming back like to the pipeline, it's really important. Like let's say you have somebody like that in your CRM, you kind of don't guess. And I'm a big believer in numbers. Like I said, I took accounting in college, so I always kind of know calculate what my numbers are going to be and things like that. And when you kind of like follow that sales pipeline process of whether you use a CRM or using Excel or whatever you're
Yeah,
kind of using to manage all your leads and everything like that, you just got to remember like do the numbers in terms of, hey, I need X amount to close X amount. And it's always different, but it's good to get in that mindset and that habit, right? Like focus on customers that you're likely to convert. Like I said at the beginning, like I'm not here to turn no's into yeses. I'm here to turn maybes into yeses, right? And that's what I kind of
right.
work. Not try to fast track your sales because people it gets desperate, right? Like you don't want to be desperate in terms of this is what I'm trying to do, and you could like it just doesn't work. Customers buy on their own time. Um, Jeff, like what is like something that you've kind of like you said, make those qualified calls and do the research in your time. And that's in an essence, that's your sales funnel. Like, that's your sales
Yeah.
pipeline. And that, how's that worked for you tenfold? Like you said, you've been in the industry, I think like your business 7 years,
Yeah.
pandemic hit, but how has that been beneficial for you?
Yeah. First and foremost, when you have that customer in your pocket, you're doing business. Always ask those questions about ramping up new products. Where are they getting that product from? You're gonna if you have that customer in your corral, you're pretty much going to know their facilities, where they ship to, all of that. So you can take that. I mean, it's right there. It's right there in paper. You have the data. Why not use that for your benefit? Instead of just concentrating on that single customer, start looking, like I said, into all those legs. There's so many revenue pipeline legs that are attached to that customer. It's crazy. Work smarter, don't work harder and think you have to, make those phone calls. Like I said, I will not do that. If I made 5 or 6 calls since the beginning of the year, that's a lot. I work my customers. I seriously do. I work my customers, and it branches out, and I do it. I do it that way because it's so much easier. Why not? Why not take something that's good and work it for your benefit? And there's two, because it's going to put a feather in their cap, because if you're knocking out of the park, they love what you do. They give you a reference to another company and say, I'm using Rail Logistics, man. They're doing a great job. Why don't you talk to Jeff?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good one. I mean, why wouldn't you want to work that?
That's the
And they
best.
same thing. It's a trickle down effect. That manufacturer has connections. That manufacturer has connections. That one has connections. That's what the logistics industry is about: connecting.
Mhm.
That collaboration with many different businesses that work in the same niche. So pick your niche, work that niche, work your customer, and revenue will start pouring in. It's to me, it's as easy as that.
And it's actually funny, like kind of segue into Lisa's kind of thing here, saying that, like find issues you're passionate about. And I saw Lisa I think she was at a
Correct.
cat expo or something like that on the weekend. And she was, I think Royal Canin or something. I don't know if she adopted a cat or not like that, but I know she was at an
Oh yeah,
expo, and those are things I'm passionate
yeah.
about. And it's so true, find issues that you're passionate about. And and do the research too. Like, don't just because you like it or like you love it or anything like that. Like there might not be revenue in there for you, right? Like let's say you like basketball, you're like, hey, maybe I want to move like basketball shows or something like that. And then you look at it and you're like, well, no, I'm not really in event logistics. I can't be that provider. I could learn to be that provider. Like you said, Jeff, in the first 2 years, you can take the time to like learn. Actually, a thought just came to my head. What kind of, not what kind of, but how many niches do you have, Jeff?
Probably four.
4? Okay. And I operate on 3. 3 I think is like, so that's kind of like saying as well, don't put all your eggs in one basket, have different niches. Are your niches like industry focused or like geographical focused? Like,
Very industry. I've been in, one of them is CPG. I've been in it, I would say, most of my career, 25 plus years in that. Medical devices, huge in that. I managed a lot of major corporations, businesses on that side. So I know it like the back of my hand, even white glove deliveries, you name it on that side. I knocked it out of the park. Steel on that furniture is another one. Now I'll plug Lisa. Lisa niche, I know it. She's in the food business. Okay, Publix, Wakefern, CF Wholesale. If you have that kind of business, go see Lisa. I'll plug her because she's good at what she does in that side of the business. She has a niche. She wants to stay in that, and she's doing very well. Everybody has their own niche, but stay in your lane. Don't be a jack of all trades because you're going to
that's fair.
fail
No,
miserably.
and that's what I like about that, Jeff, because like you're naming your niches. And the reason why I asked that is that coming back to the pipeline is a pipeline we look at a CRM, but I know for a fact that you can close your eyes and you could literally list off the companies or the industries that you want to work with, right? And right away you can build your pipeline from there, right? And that's what's
Yeah,
important, right? And kind of Lisa's kind of bringing up stuff that she can work out. Food and pet. I work
there
in
you
pet
go.
as well. It's awesome. Grocery warehouse. She mentioned are tricky, and someone has to do it. And that's the thing, right? Because there's certain people who have that niches. Hey, I just want to be a dry van, one pick, one drop, no appointment, open dock, everything like that. And hey, it works, right? And those ones are kind of like the easy ones. As Jeff, you can probably attest to this. The trickier it is, the more better it is to become specialized, right? You kind of
Oh,
become
I love complicated logistics problems. I really do. For like I said, 30 something years, working for Jaguar and Ford Motor Company. It doesn't get any more complex than that when you're working Teamsters and UAW and you have those pressures and stuff. That's difficult. Fleet management, yard management, you name it. If you have that type of background, I'm telling you, that was the hardest thing that I ever did in my career compared to all the other major corporations that I worked for. That is a very, very tough, demanding logistics business for sure.
100%. And you know what? That's like you said, you're kind of making yourself a specialist rather than just being anybody who can do anything, right? And Lisa kind of brings up here as well as like, you ways to provide value on the difficult ones. And that's really important because at the end of the day, and it's okay to have the other ones, like have the easy layups, have the easy like singles and stuff like that. But you kind of want to branch out yourself, like you just said, Jeff, like be the person that your customer calls up and be like, you got to call Jeff, you got to call Jeff. Here's his number, man. He's the guy, and when you become the guy or the girl, that's really important. And that's where you kind of see your kind of brand. And I believe like personal branding, maybe we'll get to another thing, but
Yeah.
that's where, hey, your pipeline starts to grow even more. You're just open up to a different level of customers and basis from there. So I think it's extremely important to actually stay specialized as well.
Absolutely. I would say tenfold. There's really nothing better than that. When you get into your lane and you become a SME, subject matter expert in that area, it doesn't get any better than that. There's so many people that are in those lanes that have that background. It really comes down to the person,
Mhm.
do you relate to that person? Do you like that person? It doesn't have to be the company. It's more about the individual who you're dealing with, not the company, really. It's you that could be your worst enemy if you
Yes.
don't do things the right way, whatever that right way may be. It's different for everybody else, but it's worked for me. So I'm staying exactly where I am right now, for sure.
Yeah, and I think like that it comes down to your credibility as well, right? Because like if you're talking to somebody new, you literally have like 5 or 10 seconds because they've heard it all the time before, right? But once you're kind of in there and you're building it up, it's like okay, like that's when the real work begins. Like I'm a big fan of like it's not when I get the award, It's not when we start moving some shipments. It's like, okay, when we're in the heat of it and when that check kind of hits accounting, so that's when it's like, okay, like this is where we actually start to put in the work. It's not in the
Yep.
RFP. I know everyone's going to the RFP right now. Everyone's looking at like Excel spreadsheets of lanes and data and all that stuff. And you're thinking about all the money you're going to be making with that. That's not the work.
Right.
Like Jeff, you mentioned off here that, you start a new lane and, like have those conversations, like have a million conversations until you're at launch point and understand that, hey, this is going to be a journey together because it does cost to change providers. But let me prove to you it's going to be worth it at the end of the day.
Yes, and I'll leave you with this statement, and it's more of a question than anything else. Who signs your paycheck?
Customer does. I think you asked me this already.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remember that. It's not your boss. Your boss has nothing to do with your paycheck. It's not your company, because if you're not knocking it out of the park and hitting a home run every day with your customers, you're not getting paid. It's simple as that. So just remember, it's your customer that's signing your check every single week. And if you get that up here, instead of just sitting there, that's what happens in corporations. You sit there, you try to do the best that you possibly can in that role. And you're like, I got a paycheck, I get a paycheck every week. This is great. I love it, But when you start your own business and you're an entrepreneur, those checks will not come unless you put your skills to the test and use your experience to make sure that those checks come in and those customers are the ones that sign them. So keep that in your head. There is no business. It's you as an individual, and you're supporting whoever was working for you. It changes drastically from a corporate structure to an entrepreneurial type structure where the demands are heavy and you really get tested day in and day out. So if you're good, I asked this question on LinkedIn, if your skills are so good, why not start your own business? What are you afraid of? Mm-hmm. That's a big question, right? I mean, what are you afraid? What stops you from creating your own business and going out on your own if you're that good? It's a question you have to ask yourself.
No, it's awesome. It's a great question, and we'll kind of leave off on that because I want people to kind of have that linger, right, and kind of go from there. So, Jeff, always a pleasure, man. This Monday has been amazing. We're gonna have an amazing week, and we're gonna have the replays again at 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern time on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Tune in. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. We got John Brewer from CKE Restaurants joining us to kind of talk about the client side of what he's kind of seen on his end. So if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit Jeff or I up, and then we can always get them ready for John tomorrow, or you can just send them over to us and then we'll go. But yeah, it's always a pleasure. Let's hit that outro and let's crush it tomorrow.
All right, man. Have a great day, guys.
Centurion Trucking. Our motto is people before profit. Today's market requires more transparency, consistency, and focus on what our clients need to win. Centurion Trucking and American Logistics are poised to help their clients achieve and surpass their targets. If you're looking for a team that honors your needs, dreams, and aspirations, then get a hold of Daman at